How to answer an 8-mark evaluate question. Let's have a look. What does evaluate mean? Well, evaluate means measuring the value or success of something by looking at two sides of the argument and then provide a judgment or conclusion. So basically, look at both sides using evidence and provide a conclusion. Now, a good tip or a good way to do this that I've learned from a mentor of mine is using this structure of triple O, we call it OOO, meaning you're going to have three chunky paragraphs. The first one's going to be on one hand, the second paragraph is going to be on the other hand, and the third paragraph is going to be overall. So if we go back to looking at number one there, on the one hand, in that first paragraph, I need you to include 2 points. Each point has to be point explain evidence or point evidence explain, however you prefer to do it. I prefer to go make a point and I prefer to explain that point, and then I like to give my evidence. Then you can link it back to the question if you wish. But mainly, the main thing you need to look out for is make a point, explain that point, state the obvious basically, and then give me some evidence from that point. So you need to do this for 2 points. Then on the other hand, you give me alternative points, both developed with Peel. And overall, you need to summarize these two sides and provide your own conclusion. Now, in your conclusion, do not introduce or do not bring any new topics or new information. What you need to do is look at your 2 paragraphs and think, which one do I support? Basically how I would do this and how I tell my pupils is which one was easier to write, which one had more substance and more information for you to write about. That will probably be the one that you should choose as your side of the argument. So summarize. Overall, I believe that it was, for example, positive for etc. this country, and you restate the reasons that you gave, and you also talk about the alternative. So you talk about the other side. You say, however, although this was the negatives of it, maybe you can talk about how these could be overcome. So the conclusion in an evaluate question has to be as chunky as the other paragraphs. Okay, so you need to add substance to it, and you need to really push forward your argument of why you chose your position. I do believe that it had positive effects, and you reiterate what you already said, and you argue for your case of why this could be good or bad, whichever side you picked. So 8-mark evaluate question. Remember, triple O, on one hand, on the other hand, overall. For example, arguments for an evaluate question could be based on these two sides, either positive or negative impacts, advantages versus disadvantages. You could have short-term versus long-term. You could have local versus global. You could have the most significant versus the least significant. You could have sustainable versus unsustainable. You could have social versus environmental. Or along them lines, you could also have, let's see, don't forget your SEEP, your social, economic, and environmental and political. So you could compare either two of these. But overall, I would say that you are really looking at positives versus negatives. That's going to be the main thing. But if you can narrow it down to even more specific terms like sustainable versus unsustainable, that's going to add to your argument. But as I said, in general, you're looking at a chunk of a paragraph about the pros, chunk of paragraphs about the negatives, and then you're going to provide your conclusion. Okay, so that's it for your 8 markers.